So today we're back on what I'm calling the second gen Syclone, which is basically 98 Chevy S10. Started out life as a 4-wheel drive. We've lowered it down. We're converting it to all-wheel drive, and eventually it's gonna have a V8 power plant under the hood. And yes, I know the original Syclones were turbo V6. I thought about doing that, but I don't like the sound of a turbo V6. So we're building what I would call like a Copo Syclone. If you could pick and choose what you want from the GM Copo program, if it had existed in the mid to late 90s. Kind of did that last year with a full-size truck. But anyway, we're back on that project today, and we're doing one of the interior upgrades. The Syclones had a floor-shifted automatic transmission. We're going to do the same thing with some parts that we grabbed from a junkyard out of a 4-door S10 Blazer. We got the floor shifter, we got the cable, we got the console. We have half of the upper trim plate for the steering column. Still need to find the lower. We got the little metal plate that bolts to the floor. And I think that's most of the stuff. I have a few other odds and ends. But anyway, that's what we want to do today, is get the floor shifter installed, because column shifters are for nerds. I just think floor shifters are a lot cooler. Anyway, real quick though, first I want to figure out something that has been a question in the back of my mind, and I'm going to put the guys on the spot because we got a big block Chevy over there, and we're trying to figure out what it weighs. So we're going to play a little guessing game. Nick, I'm going to put you on the spot. How much does a fully dressed Gen 7, well, long block, Gen 7 big block weigh with aluminum heads?
Aluminum one is the 680.
680?
Yeah.
All right. Nick says 680 pounds. We got to track down Chris. You ready, Chris? Drum roll, please.
Say around 680.
Oh, that's what Nick said. 681.
No. So 685.
685. All right. How about you, Thomas? You want to guess?
What's that?
Weight of a big block Chevy, aluminum heads, iron block. How much does it weigh? We're going to find out.
650.
650. All right. So we have Nick with 680, Chris 685, Thomas 650. So let's get the contraption out and find out. So we picked up this little doohickey off Amazon. It's like 40 bucks. It's probably a knockoff of some like name brand thing, but it seems to be pretty accurate. So let's see how much this big block weighs. It's supposed to go up to 1,000 kilograms, which is like what, 2,200 pounds, something like that. Guys, we were all wrong. Less by a fair amount. According to that, 540 pounds, 543.
Holy crap.
You want to weigh yours?
Yeah, because now I'm curious what the aluminum heads weigh to save you.
I thought he said 60 pounds a side, different, but that might be a bit much. All right, so this is Nick's 8.1, pretty much in the same configuration as ours, except he's got a water pump and balancer on it. But this one has the factory cast iron heads instead of the aluminum heads, so that'll be probably the biggest difference. You know, valve covers are missing, which is like probably a pound or less. So let's find out how much an iron-headed 8.1 weighs compared to an aluminum-headed one. So 614, Nick has an intake. It's cut apart, so there's a little missing on the bottom, but we'll say close enough. See how much it adds. That's like what?
47
minus 614.
614.
So 33 pounds for the intake. All right, we got a quick side project we're doing. This is the engine stand Nick had on his 8.1, 600 and some pound motor. This was a little bit sketchy with how much it was flopping around. So we're just gonna weld that together for him real quick before we put it back on. So we got our little side project taken care of. Engines are all back on the stands where they belong, and now it's time to move on. I am trying to get all the last parts installed that I purchased throughout the year. I bought the S10, I think, at the end of June or July. You guys didn't see it until a little while ago, but I've been collecting parts all year. So far, we've done quite a bit of stuff. We have bigger sway bars front and rear. We get a ZR2 rear axle. We get a cast iron ZR2 front differential. We redid all the suspension. We lowered it. So we get a bunch of parts that we have installed already. And this is really the last stuff that I have sitting on the shelf in terms of like quote unquote junkyard stuff that I can install now. I do have the transfer case, the NV149 all-wheel drive setup, which I could put in right now. The truck is a 4L60 automatic. The NV149s bolt up to a 4L60. I would have to get some different drive shafts made, and realistically, this engine combo is only going to be in here for a few more miles before we yank it out and hopefully install our 6.2 aluminum LS. So, because the shifter bolts to the floor, we're going to take the seats out, probably the console out, definitely. The cable runs, I think it runs ahead through a hole in the floor and then underneath and then loops back to the transmission. So, I guess let's just jump right in and yank the interior out. Now this piece has always felt loose, so there's got to be, yeah, there's a bolt up front that looks like it's busted. Yeah, the little holes are mounted out, so. Well, look, a key. I wonder what it unlocks. Number 3122. Get the plate all cleaned up, and Nick says this actually mounts on top of the carpet, but we got to get the holes drilled. There's two little dimples here and here, which actually line up. There's a dimple back here, which doesn't line up. The hole would have to be where that Sharpie dot is, but I kind of took a quick couple of measurements, and I think that's about where it's going to go. So we're just going to send it and kind of cross our fingers and hope for the best. So because it's going to be very difficult to get those like with a nut underneath, there's originally a stud welded to the floor, sort of like that. We're going to try a tool that I really like and don't use all that often. Just something on Amazon. I'll link it down below, but it's one of these little nut-sert thread setting type tools. So basically you get this little insert guy here, and you use this tool and it kind of crimps it, sort of like a rivet, but it's threaded on the inside, so you don't need to get a wrench underneath. So drill a couple of holes, put some inserts in, and we should be able to get our plate mounted to the floor of the truck. Step 1, remove the oversized wire staple. Step 2, pop that little doohickey off. Step 3, squeeze the little tabs, slide the cable out. All right, old shifter camo is out. All right, side project number 2. You might recognize a bumper like this. It's a GMT 800. Normally we don't do collision work. This vehicle belongs to a great customer of the shop. Had a little oopsie in the snow the other day, so we're just gonna swap the bumper out, get the customer back on the road real quick. Well, a little while later, we got the Tahoe squared away. Just put a junkyard bumper on there. That's all the customer cared about, just to get it back in one piece. I'm still waiting on one little bracket that goes behind the bumper on this side, but I guess they definitely looks a whole lot better. So back to the shifter project. You know, one of the things that makes me feel old is remembering the days of the internet forums and how much knowledge used to be out there. And it's kind of depressing because now it's like going into the archives and you look up a post and you try to find information about something that people have done a long time ago and it's just not out there anymore. And so yeah, that along with my hairline definitely makes me feel old some days. But anyway, wiring, that's kind of what I was trying to find the information on. That's what spurred that little tangent there. I like stuff that works like the factory intended, and this shifter is no different. There's some lighting down here. There is a little solenoid guy down there that kind of locks things out so it won't shift unless you have the ignition on and your foot on the brake. Now, what a lot of people do, or did rather, this is a solenoid, a lot of people will just pull this little pin out and put a zip tie around the end, and they'll just basically allow it to shift anytime and all the time, which I think is kind of silly. I like the built-in safety where you just can't accidentally bump the shifter unless you intend, you know, to get it out of park or whatever. The other thing that I like to work like the factory is the instrument cluster. It has the little PRNDL with a green square that moves around. And right now, I took the column shift assembly out, this guy right here, and there is a little button right, where did it go? Oh, right here. It's kind of weird how they do this, but there's a little button right there you can see, and that basically only controls the P on the instrument cluster. The RNDL321 is actually controlled by the neutral safety switch down on the transmission, and that's what controls the ability to start the truck, whether it's in neutral or not. So anyway, short version is I got the multimeter out and I spent a bunch of time testing circuits and stuff, and I have figured out how to make this shifter work just like the factory. So we're gonna have our illumination come on, that's easy. We're gonna have the solenoid that will disengage when you put the foot on the brake pedal so you can shift. But also there's 2 wires down here on that solenoid that you can use to make the connection so that little P comes on when you shift into park. It's just like something little and simple. And actually the vehicles that those shifters came out of didn't even have the PRNDL in the cluster. They just relied on the little, you know, illuminated thing down here. That's how you knew what gear you were in. So anyway, that's a long tangent. I won't bore you with all the details of the wiring, but if you're gonna try to use one of these shifters, whether it's in an S10 or whether it's in another vehicle, here is the wiring. I'll just kind of put the camera down there for a second so you can at least get an idea of what you got to do to make it work how it's supposed to. And that's just the color code for the wires. I did grab the connector right here so I can hardwire this into the truck. I'll have it disconnect just like the factory, and that's all the remainder. So anyway, I'll get this thing back together and be done before you know it. All right, first quick function test. I love it. So down here in 1, it matches on the cluster. 2, you know, 2 and all the way up to neutral and reverse. And like I said, park doesn't work yet. It goes out when you shift into park, but until these 2 wires right here are connected, then the P lights up. Anyway, I just got to get that wire down to the solenoid because that'll actually provide that closing of the switch only while it's in park. don't know about you guys, but I get a kick out of watching those videos on like Facebook and stuff of the people cleaning those old nasty rugs. I feel like they get them extra dirty on purpose before they film it just to make the video look good, but this definitely has a similar sort of satisfying result. Overshifted. So if you guys know me, you know how much I love playing around with different factory parts from different factory vehicles and creating something that could have been. And to my knowledge, other than maybe like the SS S10, there was never a second gen S10 pickup truck, you know, asterisk, that came with a floor shifted automatic. And a shifter is a shifter. I mean, who really cares how it happens? But to me, I think it's really cool to have something that never existed per se. And this really gives me second gen Syclone vibes. Now, obviously the color doesn't match. We'll take care of that eventually. And the only thing I don't love is you can see kind of there's a pretty big gap between this trim plate and that. And I've got this actually bolts to the shifter itself. The shifter is all the way down. So I don't know if I need to space the console up, but also how I mentioned the little clips that hold the two halves together, all of them are busted off. So really, the only thing that holds this in place are the two bolts in the cup holders. But, I mean, I'll take it. For now, to me, that is a pretty dang cool upgrade. I mean, we've got factory lighting that works. We've got a floor shifter. So I'm gonna go hop in the truck, take a drive, run some errands, and make race car noises in my head and manually shift it because that's what I do. But anyway, so thank you guys for watching. I appreciate it. That brings this video to a close. And really that means the only parts that I have purchased that I haven't installed yet on this S10 are the parts needed to make it truly full-time all-wheel drive, which means I need to spend some more money and get another engine on the way because I have my eyes on the lookout. I think I have a line on a couple. I'm looking for like a 6.2 aluminum LS from an Escalade or a Denali, like an L92, I think. I want a 6L80 6-speed automatic. And I'm pretty sure I can actually adapt that 6L80 to the shifter that we just installed without a whole lot of quirks. But anyway, there you go, guys. The second gen Syclone project off to a pretty good start with one more factory upgrade. Oh, Merry Christmas, Happy New Year, Happy Holidays and all that good stuff. I appreciate you guys. This year has been an awesome one. It's been much, much busier than I ever would have imagined. We'll do a video just on that topic in a little bit. But again, thank you guys. Hope you have happy holidays. One last final addendum here we'll add before we go. I couldn't stand the gap between the wood grain piece and the rest of the console. And the problem was where the cup holders bolt to the metal under the shifter, that was like the high point, everything else was lower. So I got some weight on here, 2 press plates and a tire balancer collar. And I just took the heat gun and I got it really super duper warm down here in the bottom of the cup holder. That softens the plastic just enough so the weights can kind of push everything down and close up that gap. So yeah, it's definitely still not perfect, but much, much better